the High Court in Pretoria has ruled that government's national school nutrition program must immediately resume for all pupils. It was suspended when schools shut down in March. This prompted Equal Education and Section 27 to take the Basic Education Department to court. Equal Education's General Secretary, Noncedo Madubedube, speaks to us now live via Skype. Noncedo, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It was a few weeks ago when the two of us last spoke. It was very early in the morning. You had just gone to court appealing for this to be pushed through so that we could feed so many South African children who are in need. This is a victory indeed, but we've now come through the last few weeks where those children have still been without food. How do you feel about this court's decision?
Yeah, look, I think symbolically, and I was sharing this with comrades yesterday, symbolically this is fantastic for us because it means that finally the courts in South Africa, together with the Department of Basic Education, are compelled to recognize that the right to basic nutrition and the right to basic education are interlinked inside the constitutional obligations of the country and the state to children in particular during this period. I think it's important for us because at too many times we've seen the Department of Basic Education fail to understand that, especially during this period, they've got a social duty towards children, to protect children, to support children, and the whole school community as a result. So regardless of what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks, whether schools are closed or open, or parts of the country are open and closed, and they're using their risk-adjusted strategies, learners must be fed. So the school community, or the best place inside any kind of local community, must create a space to be able to disperse food, hot or non-perishables, to learners to ensure that the over 9 million learners that qualify for the school nutrition program are fed. But my cautiousness around this is that while symbolically this case is a victory for learners and for families, there's a compulsion that I don't think the state is able to act of urgency. So I do worry that even though we've got this declaratory order, are we going to be able to make sure that the 8 provinces across the country adhere to this by Monday, you know, and start feeding learners forthwithly? The reason I'm concerned is because during the case, the Department of Basic Education and the state's attorneys came to the case and said, look, we agree with Equal Education, excuse me, we do want to feed learners, and we're going to start feeding learners as from the 22nd of June. On the 22nd of June, or the week of the 22nd of June, we went back into school communities to find out that this was in fact the fact, and it wasn't. In many provinces, there were 1 or 2 schools. There was no structural intervention or relief around the feeding of learners. For instance, today we know that around 17.2% learners in the Eastern Cape are being fed. Just 17.2 learners of those that qualify for this meal. So there is just a lack of urgency, a lack of understanding that this is in fact a compulsion and a right that learners are entitled to in these different school communities. So it's going to be interesting to watch that the departments are able to give us, or publicly, not just us, Equal Education, but publicly present these plans to feed learners in the next 10 days. And after that, be able to, every 2 weeks then, give us reports to show that look, the implementation of this program is running in these ways. So,
if I could just come in there, we've heard repeatedly from the legal representatives of the department during those court proceedings saying, we know it's urgent, we don't need this declaratory order, A, and B, from your side, we kept hearing that, but the budget is there for this. The system is there for this. What is the hold-up? Has anybody from the Department of Basic Education been able to tell you what the problem is? Why can we not feed our children if the budget is there and more of these children are now already back to school anyway?
Look, I think there's 2 things there. The one is that's why I said I'm happy about the way they make these 2 rights intrinsic to one another. Because inside conversations in engagement platforms of the DBE, they keep talking about social relief being something that the Department of Social Development can do. But we've learned through so many readings and articles during this period that social development has failed to reach the millions of people that needed this relief in the country. In fact, today we sit with a humanitarian crisis around food insecurity in South Africa. And so the departments are failing to grasp the fact that beyond the classroom and teaching and learning between learner and teacher, they've got a social responsibility to those communities to ensure that they at least assist other departments with the relief programs that we need at the moment. And we can go on about what the school needs in order to be ready for educating learners, but now we're just talking about the right to basic nutrition. So that's the first thing.
Okay, but unfortunately we are running out of time, Noncedo. What happens now? I mean, the court has declared, given this order. Do you think that's going to be enough to force DBE to do their job? And what happens if they don't?
Look, what we realized after we launched this urgent court case is that the department started reaching out frantically to provinces and saying to them, look, we can't afford to be in court, get your act together, can people start moving? So there's some movement around the school nutrition program, and what we're hoping for now is that regardless of how many phases of learners are inside school, the departments don't back out and continue to roll out this program. What I do want to ask from anyone that's watching is that if you're affected, a part of any kind of school community, please watch that inside your schools, there is actually school nutrition programs being run for learners on a daily basis to provide them for these meals. If not, contact Equal Education. We've got socials, we've got emails. Contact the HODs of the different provincial departments and compel them, because they do. We have a court order now that says it must be done with immediate effect.
Okay, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for that update. As always, Equal Education's General Secretary there, Noncedo Madubedube, giving us just an update on that High Court decision in Pretoria that has ruled that government's National School Nutrition Program must immediately resume for all pupils. And think about this, there are many pupils that have had to depend on those meals they receive from school, and they haven't been able to receive them since lockdown started, and that was back at the end of March. Just think about that for a little while.